Exchange rate quotations. Now, exchange rates, as we know, are quoted in terms of the number of units of a particular currency or the price currency that are required to purchase one unit of the base currency. In a direct exchange rate quote, the domestic currency is stated as the price currency or the currency in the numerator, while the foreign currency is stated as the base currency or the currency in the denominator. For example, for a trader in the United States, an exchange rate quote of $1.5 per pound is a direct exchange rate quote because the dollar is the numerator or the price currency, while the foreign currency, the pound, is the denominator or the base currency. In an indirect currency quote, the foreign currency is stated as the numerator or the price currency, while the domestic currency is stated as the base currency in the denominator. So for example, for the same trader in the US, an exchange rate quote of 0.67 pounds per dollar is an indirect currency quote because the foreign currency is in the numerator, it is the price currency, while the domestic currency, the dollar, is in the denominator and expressed as the base currency in the exchange rate quote. Note that direct and indirect quotes are just the inverse or reciprocal of each other, so 1 divided by 1.5 gives you 0.67. Now, it is often confusing to describe exchange rate quotes as direct or indirect quotes because domestic and foreign currencies depend on where one is located. To overcome this confusion, the professional foreign exchange market has developed a set of currency market conventions. These conventions are listed on the following table. So this table over here lists your foreign exchange market conventions, and there's a few things that I need to highlight from this table. First of all the three-letter codes right here refer to the major exchange rates, okay? Now first I need to emphasize that an exchange rate, which always involves two currencies, is different from referring to a single currency in its own right. So for example, when we refer to the euro or the EUR, we are usually referring to the currency in the Eurozone, which is denoted by this symbol right here. However, when I say the euro exchange rate or the EUR exchange rate, then I am referring, according to foreign exchange market convention, to this quote right here, which is called the euro, and the euro exchange rate refers to the US dollar euro exchange rate. Okay, so just to re-emphasize, when I'm just saying that, hey, I need to buy 10 euros, then obviously I'm buying the Eurozone currency. I'm referring to the currency of the Eurozone in its own right. However, when I talk about the euro exchange rate, then according to market convention, you should know that I'm talking about the euro US dollar exchange rate in terms of USD per euro. Okay, so the USD is the price currency, the euro is the base currency. Similarly, when I talk about the yen in its own right, I'm talking about the currency of Japan, which is denoted by this symbol right here. But when I say the yen exchange rate, then according to market convention, I am referring to the dollar-yen exchange rate, which interestingly, you should note, is expressed in terms of yen per dollar. All right, so when I just say, hey, I'm interested in buying some yen, this means I'm referring to the yen as the currency of Japan. However, when I say, hey, the yen exchange rate has gone up, then specifically I'm talking about the Japanese yen US dollar exchange rate expressed in terms of Japanese yen per US dollar. Now note that all the three-letter codes always refer to an exchange rate that involves the US dollar. Okay? On the other hand, this is not the case with the six-letter codes over here. None of them involve the US dollar. The six-letter codes refer to the major cross rates. These are secondary exchange rates, which are not as commonly used as the main exchange rates. So the three-letter codes refer to the main exchange rates, which usually also involve the US dollar. The six-letter codes refer to the major cross rates that do not involve the US dollar. Now the third thing that I need to highlight is that when both currencies are mentioned either in the code or in the name convention, so when both currencies are mentioned in either the code or the name convention the way it works is that the first currency is the base currency, and the second currency is the price currency. So just going over a couple of examples, over here you have a 3-letter code, but the name has $yen in it. So since the name has two currencies mentioned, it's the $yen quote, it makes the currency that is mentioned first the base currency, and the currency that is mentioned second is the price currency. So $yen refers to Japanese yen per US dollar. So JPY, when I'm talking about the JPY exchange rate, it's called the $yen exchange rate, okay? And $yen can be expressed in any of the following forms. It can be written as USDJPY. It can be written as just JPY. It can be written as USD:JPY. And it can also be written as USD-JPY. So the $yen exchange rate can be written in any of these four forms, but know that since it is called the $yen quote, it is written in terms of JPY per USD. Alright, so the currency mentioned first is the base currency, the currency mentioned second is the price currency. Alright, so make sure you're very familiar with this quoting and writing convention. You can write this exchange rate in all these forms, but in all of these forms note that the base currency is mentioned first and the price currency is mentioned second. The price currency is the currency in the numerator, the base currency is the currency in the denominator. And finally, note that regardless of where the trader is located, she is always faced with a mix of direct and indirect quotes. So for example, let's work with a trader who's based in Canada. So for this trader in Canada, she will face, or she will be quoted a rate of Euro Canada, right here, which expresses the price of euros in terms of the Canadian dollar. So the euro is the base currency, the Canadian dollar is the price currency. This trader in Canada will also face a quote for the Japanese yen, known as Canada yen. Since it is known as Canada yen, you should be able to infer that it expresses the price of the Canadian dollar in terms of the Japanese yen. Right? The Canadian dollar is the base currency, the Japanese yen is the price currency. So the trader in Canada faces these two quotes according to market convention. Note that for her, this is a direct quote. However, this over here is an indirect quote. This is a direct quote because her domestic currency is in the numerator. This is an indirect quote because her domestic currency, the Canadian dollar, is in the denominator in this quote. Now just one more thing before I move on from here. In professional foreign exchange markets, an exchange rate is usually quoted as a two-sided price. A two-sided price means that dealers in the foreign exchange market quote a bid price and an ask price. So exchange rates are quoted in terms of the bid and the ask, where the bid refers to the price at which the dealer will buy the base currency, and the ask price is the price at which the dealer will sell the base currency. So since the dealer always wants to make a profit, the bid price must be lower than the ask price. So let me just work with a quick example over here. if you have a euro USD exchange rate quote of 1.3802 and 1.3806, you know that this is the bid price and this is the ask price. But note that these exchange rate quotes represent the price of the base currency according to this exchange rate quote, euro USD. It means that we're representing the price of euro in terms of US dollars, right? The currency mentioned first in the convention is the base currency. The currency mentioned second is the price currency. So we're representing the price of the euro. These rates represent the rate at which the dealer is willing to buy the euro in terms of dollars, and this rate represents the rate at which the dealer is willing to sell euros in terms of US dollars. From the client's perspective, note that she would receive $1.3802 for selling her euros, and she would have to purchase euros at the price of $1.3806 per euro. Right? So the roles are reversed. The bid represents the price at which the dealer is willing to buy, and the ask represents the price at which the dealer is willing to sell. The bid therefore represents the price at which a client would have to sell, and the ask represents the price at which the client would have to buy. Alright? Note that since the introduction of electronic dealing systems, foreign exchange markets have become quite efficient in linking traders across different countries. This has led to increased global competition between dealers and has caused observed market bid-ask spreads to shrink significantly. Now suppose that the JPY per USD exchange rate has increased from 77.58 to 78.45. Now, since the JPY per USD exchange rate has increased, it means that there has been an appreciation in the value of the base currency or the US dollar, and there has been a depreciation in the value of the Japanese yen. Right, so given that this exchange rate quotes expresses the price of the dollar in terms of the yen, we can use these exchange rate quotes to determine the change in value of the dollar. So the change in the value of the dollar equals $78.45, which is the new price of the dollar in terms of yen, divided by 77.58, which was the initial price of the dollar in terms of yen, minus 1, which tells you that the value of the dollar has increased by 1.12%. Now, the important thing for you to note on this slide is that the percentage increase in the price of the dollar against the yen does not equal the percentage decrease in the value of the yen against the dollar. In order to determine the percentage decrease in the value of the yen against the dollar, we must work with exchange rate quotes that express the price of the yen, or make yen the base currency. So we need to convert these exchange rate quotes in terms of dollars per yen. So what we see here is that the US dollar per Japanese yen exchange rate has fallen from 0.0129 to 0.0127. So 0.0127 divided by 0.0129 minus 1 tells you that the Japanese yen has depreciated by 1.55% against the US dollar. Note that the percentage increase in the value of the dollar against the yen is not equal to the percentage decrease in the value of the yen against the US dollar. A currency cross rate is an exchange rate between two currencies that is derived from each of these two currencies' relationship with a third currency. Now, for example, in the table earlier, which contained all foreign exchange market quotation conventions, two of the major exchange rates quoted in the market were EUR, or the euro exchange rate, which represented US dollars per euro, and then you had the JPY, or the Japanese yen exchange rate, which quoted the price of USD in terms of JPY, or JPY per USD. Now, given these two exchange rates that express USD per euro and JPY per USD, we can multiply these two exchange rate quotes to obtain the price of euros in Japanese yen. JPY per euro would basically give you the EUR JPY cross rate, which can also be expressed as EUR colon JPY. Note that both these exchange rate quotes are quoted as JPY per unit of EUR because the euro is the base currency, the JPY is the price currency. The point here is that the given exchange rates should be multiplied such that the third currency, or the common currency between the two exchange rate quotes, mathematically cancels out and leaves you with an exchange rate quote for the two remaining currencies. Now, in order to cancel out the third currency, what we've done is that we've put the multiplication sign in the middle so that the US dollar cancels out. Sometimes, however, given the way that the exchange rates are presented, you might need to invert one of the exchange rate quotes so that the third currency cancels out. So let me just give you an example of that. Consider the euro or EUR exchange rate, which represents USD per euro, and also consider the Great British Pound exchange rate that represents USD per pound. Now note that both these exchange rate quotes have the US dollar as the price currency, USD per euro, and USD per pound. Now, what operator could you insert between these two quotes to make sure that the third, or the common currency, the US dollar, cancels out? If you put a division sign in the middle, then what you get is USD per euro times the reciprocal of this exchange rate quote, which would be GBP per USD, and then the USD would cancel out. So basically what you need to do is invert this exchange rate quote so that the third currency, or the US dollar, cancels out when you multiply the two quotes. So effectively you can represent this as USD per euro multiplied by USD per pound when this exchange rate quote is inverted. Alright, so let's move ahead. Let's move into an example to see how cross-currency exchange rates can be calculated. So this is a fairly comprehensive example. You're given these three exchange rate quotes. You're given the spot exchange rate today, and you're given the expected spot rate 1 year from today. And you're required to answer the following questions. First of all, we are required to calculate the spot euro-yen cross rate. Okay, so when they say the spot euro-yen cross rate, they are requiring us to calculate the price of euro in terms of Japanese yen. Right? The euro has to be the base currency, the yen has to be the price currency. Now, in order to calculate the cross rate between the Japanese yen and the euro, you need to find exchange rate quotes over here, one of them having the JPY in it, the other one having the euro in it, and both of them having a third common currency. So here you have the common currency given by the dollar, so you can use this exchange rate and this exchange rate to determine your Euro JPY cross rate. Now this spot rate, the Euro USD spot rate, refers to the price of the Euro in terms of USD. So you have USD per Euro, and the other exchange rate quote which is relevant to this calculation is the USDJPY. In this exchange rate quote, the US dollar is the base currency while the yen is the price currency. So you have JPY divided by USD. Note that the way these two currency quotes are presented, it means that you can just insert the multiplication sign in the middle, multiply these two exchange rate quotes, and you would be left with JPY per Euro, which is exactly the cross rate that you need. So for question 1, all you need to do is multiply the Euro USD spot rate 1.3804 times the USD JPY spot rate 76.83, which gives you 106.0561. So 106.0561 is your Euro JPY exchange rate, or what you can say is that it takes 106.05 Japanese yen to purchase 1 euro. Question 2 requires us to calculate or compute the Euro Pound cross rate. Since Euro is named first in the quoting convention, the Euro must be the base currency and the Pound must be the price currency. So you're supposed to calculate the price of the Euro in terms of the Pound. So the two exchange rate quotes that are relevant from this table to the calculation of the Euro Pound exchange rate are the Pound Dollar exchange rate and the Euro Dollar exchange rate. Okay, so what you have in the Euro Dollar exchange rate is USD per Euro, and what you have in the Pound Dollar exchange rate is USD per Pound. So simply multiplying these two exchange rates will not solve your problem because the USD does not cancel out. However, if you were to invert this exchange rate quote, then you could put a multiplication sign and then the US dollar would cancel out. So your US dollar per Euro rate is 1.3804, and the inverted value of your US dollar per Pound exchange rate is 1 divided by 1.5784. You perform this calculation and you obtain a value of 0.8746 as your Euro Pound exchange rate, which represents the price of the Euro in terms of pounds. Question 3. By what percentage is the US dollar expected to appreciate or depreciate against the Great British Pound? So you have the GBP dollar exchange rate given to you here. Note that this exchange rate represents the price of the pound, right? These exchange rates present the price of the pound in terms of USD or USD per pound. In order to determine the change in the value of the dollar versus the pound, you need to invert these exchange rate quotes because you need to express the dollar as the base currency. You need to work with the change in value or the change in the price of the dollar, right? So the price of the dollar in terms of pounds has gone from 1 divided by 1.5784 to 1 divided by 1.5698. So 1 divided by 1.5698, which is the new price of the dollar, divided by 1 divided by 1.5784 minus 1 gives you the relative change in the price of the dollar in terms of Great British Pound, and the answer you get is 0.55%. A positive answer here means that obviously the value of the dollar has increased relative to the pound. This means that the pound must have depreciated versus the dollar. Notice that these two exchange rates represent the price of the pound in terms of dollars. The price of the pound in terms of dollars has decreased from 1.5784 to 1.5698. Since the price of the pound has decreased, it suggests that the pound has depreciated or that the dollar has appreciated. Now on to question 4. By what percentage is the US dollar expected to appreciate or depreciate against the Japanese yen? So now we're working with the dollar-yen exchange rate. The dollar-yen exchange rate, the way it is presented to us, refers to the price of the dollar in terms of Japanese yen. Since we are required to determine the change in the value of the dollar, we have to work with changes in the price of the dollar, and these exchange rates actually present the change in the price of the dollar. Therefore, this is a pretty straightforward calculation. The change in the price of the dollar in terms of yen equals 76.70 divided by 76.83 minus 1, which gives you negative 0.17%. So the dollar is expected to depreciate versus the yen by 0.17%. Alright, so question 5. List the currencies from the strongest to the weakest based on their expected performance over the coming year. Okay, so let's see what we know so far. We know that the euro-dollar exchange rate is expected to decline from 1.3804 to 1.3720. So this exchange rate is declining, and this exchange rate declining means that the base currency is expected to decline over the coming year. The base currency in this exchange rate quote is the euro. So we know that the euro is expected to fall versus the US dollar. Now looking at the pound dollar exchange rate, so the pound dollar exchange rate is also expected to decline. It's falling from 1.5784 to 1.5698. A decrease in this exchange rate implies a decrease in the currency, which is represented as the base currency. In the pound dollar exchange rate, it is the pound, or the currency mentioned first, that is the base currency. So this tells us that the pound is also expected to depreciate versus the dollar. So what we know for sure from these two right here is that the US dollar is expected to be stronger than the euro and the pound. Now let's evaluate which of these two is stronger, the euro or the pound, by looking at the euro-pound exchange rate. So we determined the euro-pound spot rate in question 2. The euro-pound spot rate expresses the price of euros in terms of pounds. The price of euros in terms of pounds currently equals 0.8746. So what we do now is determine the expected euro-pound cross rate in 1 year. To make this calculation, all we do is we multiply the euro-dollar expected exchange rate 1.3720 times the inverse or the inverted dollar per pound exchange rate, or the pound dollar. So the inverse of the expected pound dollar exchange rate is 1 divided by 1.5698. So 1.3720 times 1 divided by 1.5698 gives us 0.8740. So pounds per euro, or the euro pound cross rate, is expected to decline from 0.8746 to 0.8740. So the currency that is the base currency is expected to decline in value. The base currency in the euro pound exchange rate or cross rate is the euro. So we know that the euro is expected to fall versus the pound. So the only remaining currency that we have to figure out is the Japanese yen. The USD-Japanese yen exchange rate expresses the price of US dollars in terms of yen. The price of US dollars in terms of yen is expected to fall from 76.83 to 76.7 yen. A fall in this exchange rate quote implies a decrease or a depreciation in the value of the base currency. The base currency is the dollar, so from here you can conclude that the dollar is expected to depreciate versus the yen. So in order to rank the currencies from strongest to weakest based on their expected performance, you know that the yen is the strongest because it is expected to appreciate against the dollar, and the dollar is expected to appreciate against the euro and the pound. At number 2 is the dollar, which is expected to appreciate versus the euro and the pound. And finally, between the euro and the pound, you know that the euro is expected to depreciate versus the pound, so the pound comes in third and the euro comes in fourth. Note that cross-currency calculations are usually performed automatically by electronic dealing machines and then provided to traders. Since market participants can obtain both the underlying exchange rates as well as cross rates, it is very important for cross rates to be consistent with the underlying exchange rates. Any disparities will give rise to arbitrage opportunities. So let me give you an example. In this example, based on the euro-dollar exchange rate and on the dollar-yen exchange rate, we determined that the exchange rate between the euro and the Japanese yen, or the USDJPY exchange rate, was 106.0561. This means that in this exchange rate, the euro is the base currency and the yen is the price currency. Now, if some dealer, instead of offering you this rate, were to offer you an exchange rate of 107 Japanese yen per euro, you would be faced with an arbitrage opportunity. You could just purchase euros for 106.0561 yen and then sell euros for 107 yen. This would leave you with a profit of 0.9439 yen for every euro that you trade. This type of arbitrage is referred to as triangular arbitrage because it involves three currencies. You're using three currencies because you're not provided, at least over here, with a direct euro-yen exchange rate. You have to work through these two exchange rates to indirectly get this exchange rate at which you choose to buy the euro, and then you directly sell the euro to the dealer for the price that he quotes you. Now, practically speaking, traders and automatic trading algorithms ensure that such price discrepancies almost never occur. So nothing to get too excited about. Chances of you getting to benefit from such an arbitrage are very, very small.